Star Wars Battlefront 2 is back and better than ever, with noobs and masters all flooding the servers.
This is the way.
Now, although I am technically not a noob as I played the game when it first came out in 2017, jumping back in has definitely been tough.
Bruh.
Through many deaths and getting absolutely mollywopped by people's lightsabers, I have found Captain Phasma to be a high-quality hero for noobs like myself, as she is easy to use with her basic abilities and basic star cards. Many of the OG Battlefront players are not the biggest fans of Phasma. She can be a bit annoying to play against due to the camping and minimal map movement. People are also not the biggest fans of blaster heroes in HVV, which stands for Heroes versus Villains. If you didn't know, you do now, baby. But nonetheless, I think she's the perfect hero for a noob. Starting with the basics for Captain Phasma, she starts out with 700 HP with a health regeneration of 50 health per second after a 5-second delay. For Phasma's weapons, you're mainly going to be using the F11D blaster. This has a pretty high rate of fire and an increase in accuracy the more you fire, meaning that you should hold the trigger when firing instead of tapping your trigger. And then your other attack option is going to be to use her staff, which is her melee attack. Looking at Phasma's abilities from left to right, first off, we have her staff that we just talked about. With this, if you can manage to chain together all 3 strikes, it does a pretty good amount of damage, especially if you have the correct star cards paired with it. Her staff is by no means going to be able to duel with any Jedi, but it is a solid option if you're able to get a few hits off and then roll away from your opponents. The actual animation is pretty slow, I will say, so I wouldn't recommend relying on it for your main weapon. Up next is De Capitano's middle ability, Survivor. This gives her a pretty decent health buff and does a great job if you trigger it just before you enter combat. It doesn't affect players around you like Finn and Yoda's middle ability do, but buffing your own health is never a bad thing. The health increases to 900 when you do use this ability, but be sure you are not in close contested combat situations, as again, the animation does take a bit to generate. The best time, as I said before, is no doubt to use this just before you enter combat or while you're waiting for an enemy to enter your sentry droid space. Now this directly leads us into her last ability, which is going to be the sentry droid. Now this is where people get pretty upset. You know, this is where you see a lot of people camping out at your sentry droid. It kind of does encourage camping a little bit, but I think it's great for noobs that are trying to learn the game. You know, using a lightsaber hero early on is pretty difficult. You know, if you don't know what you're doing, like myself, I'm not very good at, you know, parrying attacks, dodging attacks, doing the little method where you jump over them, attack them from behind, as they would say. But you can actually pick up the droid and move it around, so you don't necessarily have to camp. Her first order sentry droid is equipped with a blaster as well as a stun, which when used correctly can be a great benefit to any Phasma player. The best way to use this thing is by locking down certain areas of the map, whether you're in HVV or if you're trying to lock down a command post. The turret does a pretty solid job of dealing with enemies, but in my opinion, the stun is the best part of this thing, man. You can bait people into the radius and then shock them, leaving them vulnerable to your staff or blaster. Now that we've talked a little bit about her abilities, let's talk about some of the star cards to use with Captain Phasma.
Yes!
Not Hard Enough is the first star card to use, no Diddy in that one. This is going to significantly reduce the damage while Survivor is active, up to 50% with Epic. This is going to give you a huge advantage while using Survivor, being able to outlast your opponents. The next star card you're going to want to use is Safety First. This is again going to be attached to Survivor. This can kind of really make Phasma a little bit of a tank. This is going to give you overall more health when you activate Survivor. These first two, man, they do a great job of increasing your overall survival with Phasma. Like we said, kind of creating a tank with her. The increase in health is going to start at plus 20 HP, but when you get it to Epic, it goes all the way to plus 60 HP. Now, with the last star card, you kind of have a little bit of an option depending on what your specific play style is. This first option we're going to go over is more for blaster players if you want to focus on that aspect of Phasma. This star card is called Blaster Inspection. Now, I didn't really cover this, but her blaster does overheat fairly quickly. So with this option here with Blaster Inspection, this is going to reduce Phasma's blaster from overheating every time she kills an enemy. This is going to be really beneficial because, like I said, Her blaster overheats pretty quick, and it does get annoying because of how high the fire rate on her weapon is. But with this star card, it can reduce the maximum heat up to 36% when fully upgraded. And I also didn't cover this, but the animation for when she kind of has to do that little reload thing, it does take a bit, so this can be definitely beneficial if you want to focus on using that blaster. The other option here for Phasma players is to go with finish them off. If you find yourself using her staff quite a bit in close quarters, this could be a better option for you. Finish them off makes the last strike of Phasma give off more damage, starting with 20 more damage all the way to 50 more points of increased damage when you max that puppy out. Now that we've covered all of her abilities and some of the star cards, let's talk about the play style for noobs and how you should actually use her. I mentioned it a little bit before, but baiting opponents into the sentry droid is a very effective strategy, as it's either going to blast them or stun them, leaving them helpless to your blaster or staff for more damage. You can also pick up and move the sentry droid around the map, which is key if you don't want to be sit in the same spot the entire game, which can kind of make it a little bit easier for enemies to swarm you, gang up on you, curb stomp you in the corner, if you will. She's overall not the fastest character. She's not going to have any dash abilities or any like sprint mechanics like you might see with Han Solo. She's not going to have like a Yoda dash or a Darth Maul dash. She just kind of has that basic Stormtrooper roll. She can't jump very high. Her sprint speed is relatively low. So you kind of do want to, play your cards right. You don't want to be too aggressive with her because you're not going to be able to take down any opponents doing that. So keeping your distance is definitely going to be key. If you're playing with friends, the best way to use her is to coordinate what you're doing with her and which areas of the map you're trying to lock down. If you're playing by yourself, you might need to accommodate a little bit to what your teammates are doing and help them as much as you can. Overall, Phasma is not the best hero in this game by any means, but she has some pretty decent abilities and star cards that make her relatively effective, especially for noobs that maybe don't want to use lightsaber heroes because they're not comfortable with that quite yet. And to all my OG Battlefront players out there, man, please do not be too upset at us for using Captain Phasma. Thank you.